Thanks, Gregor. Morning, Paul. What does your checklist look like when you move to the wing like that mid-game?
Uh, just know my position a little bit. I think it depends who you're playing with. I think sometimes when you're playing with another centerman and I'm first one back, then it's easy because I know I could just play low and Chive can play wing. If I'm first one back, then it's just, sometimes defensively it's a little easier. You just got to take your guy, but just more communicating, I think, for me. And then if I ever have any questions, more kind of just figuring out different things or watching different guys, but not much changes. I think it's the same thing, close support, just communicate out there because sometimes I'm first back, sometimes, Shy first back or Wheels first back, and then you just kind of rearrange from there.
We'll go next to Paul Friesen from the Winnipeg Sun. Go ahead, Paul.
Hey, Paul, Blake was telling us last night that he thought that might just be the second time in your life you've played left wing. Take us through if that's right or not, and what is the hardest part?
Yeah, I don't know. I think just thinking that I'm playing wing might be the hardest part. I played like right wing before, not left, and then sometimes, like I said, sometimes there might be breakouts might be a little tougher just because you're on the wall, right? You don't have as a centerman, it's a lot easier to be underneath the puck. But like I said, I think when I did make a mistake there once or twice, and then Chev kind of just talked to me on the bench, and right away, all of a sudden, we figured out the next time around. That's what it takes sometimes. I think you're going to make mistakes. That's fine. But if you know why you're doing it and now know how to fix them, then you're fine. And, I think once you get that puck out of the zone, then it's just, you're just playing hockey again.
We'll go next to Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning, Paul. This is probably a pretty obvious question, but in a 56-game season, it would seem that the need to not let a one-game losing streak turn into much more is ultra important. You guys have been excellent at it so far this year. I think 5-0-1 after a loss. What have you seen from this group that's allowed you to have that quick bounce back?
Yeah, I think you said short-term memory. I think a lot of times you're playing the same team again, so you're kind of just, you want to get the early edge early on. But I think more than anything, it's just that's kind of been the mindset we've had from the start of the year with Paul is all about, if you can try to get a winning streak, do it. But, as important as that is, I think, getting off a losing streak as quick as possible is important too. And, nothing better. Sometimes, when you have a tough loss like that, just playing back to back, you just forget about it. And just today's a new day and we focus on it and just kind of come out and bring out our A game.
We'll go next to Kelly Moore from CJOB. Go ahead, Kelly.
Hey, Paul. We don't know how long you'll stay with Mark and Blake, but if you do, there's every likelihood that you're probably going to gain a few shifts and a few extra minutes. Are you in as good a spot as you could be now at this point in the season to take on a slightly heavier load if it works out that way?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's a different, you're maybe skating more up and down a little bit on the wing, but you're not covering as much area as you are as center. So it's just different. Like I said, I think, you could play, some nights might be harder when you don't have the puck and you're chasing the puck a lot, and some nights might be easier. But like I said, I think being able to play different positions throughout the game, throughout the shift, I think just makes it easy. And for me, like I said, I think the game pretty good. So I kind of just read and react of, where my, line mates are, where the puck is, and just go from there.
We'll go next to Sarah Lesky from TSN. Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, I know that Vern always says it's easier to go from center to wing than the other way, but do you think that it's maybe easier for you in some ways to make an adjustment even on left wing at this point in your career, just with that experience that you have and that ability to read and react, as opposed to if this had happened and it was a position you were put in really early on?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's just a game. I think sometimes people make too much of it positionally where you're playing, especially the way the game's changed from or was 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Now it's just there's a lot of skill in the game. There's a lot of free flowing and a lot of kind of ad lib in the game where there wasn't as much as that before. So in that sense, you adjust to that. But then sometimes you play teams that play more structure and you're playing more in your position the whole time. Like I said, I adjust that too as well. But yeah, I think if this would happen earlier in my career, you're thinking differently and you're overthinking it. Later in your career, you're ready for all different possibilities. I think when you look at the lineup here, there's so many different centers / wingers that can play either or. And sometimes when you switch up the lines, different guys are going to put in different positions. And I've seen it in my career with a lot of different guys, and you just go out there and play. I think if you make too much fuss out of it, I think gets in your own head. So for me, it's just try to enjoy the game out there and just go out there and have fun.
Just a couple more for Paul. We'll go back to Ken Weber from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Weber.
Paul, Blake mentioned last night that when you guys started playing together in Munich, you kind of tried to pass the puck into the net. How do you find that balance between using your creativity but also taking the shots when they're there for you when you're playing with two guys with vision that Mark and Blake both have?
Yeah, I mean, you saw yesterday. I think sometimes you're trying to be too nice of a guy, but I think if you just have that shot mentality or the attacking mentality, I think plays kind of get created after that. So I think, and you saw yesterday in the game, early in the game, I think, most of the team was trying to make too many cute plays, too many nice plays where sometimes if you do get the shot on net, that's what kind of creates the havoc, and that's where you get the chances. And kind of, it's the same thing for power plays. Sometimes those nice plays don't really happen until after you get a couple of shots on net. I think you got to have that same mentality 5-on-5 where it's easier like that too, because as a winger, as a center, whoever you're playing with, I think if you know that they're going to attack the net, then, you can kind of follow. I think sometimes early on, if you're making those extra passes, sometimes you're not ready for it. And I think that's what kind of gets you off sync a little bit.
And final question to Paul Friesen from the Winnipeg Sun. Go ahead, Paul.
One more on the center wing combination, Paul. If center play is more demanding, why do you like it? What do you prefer about it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who it's more demanding. I think guys who play wing say center's harder. Guys who play center say winger's harder. Guys who play D say forward's harder. Guys who play forward say D's harder. So I think, they're all like that. I think I don't know if it's demanding. I think as a center, it's just, for me, it's easy as a center because I can kind of just read off different guys. So I think you have to kind of see like the overall picture as a centerman. So sometimes if you're going in the corner and one D's there and the other D's there, you got to come back up and play the D's position in front of the net. Sometimes you're the first guy. I think you have more eyes on the play, right? You're kind of overseeing things. I think as a winger, sometimes you just have one thing and sometimes you're kind of relying on a D-man or a centerman to talk to you a little bit. So in that sense, it might be more demand for some people, but to me, that just comes easy, and I think physically they're different because one of them, you might be skating more sometimes as centerman, but you're kind of always moving a little bit in motion. So if it goes from one corner to the other, you're never really stopping and you're kind of slowly, always got a little speed, a little glide. And as a winger, I think you're doing more starts and stops. So when you are heading in the zone, it's a lot easier because you're just standing there covering your guy. But when the puck's going in and out of the zone and you're kind of trying to skate as hard as you can in a straight line all the time, that's when it can get taxing. So depends what you prefer, but sometimes I think like the smarts or the mental part of the center might be harder, but sometimes the physical part of a winger might be tougher at different parts of the game.